Hello and welcome back to Blind Inspirations. I've thought a lot about why we do, what we say we want, and what we actually pursue. For me, that question became urgent when I started losing my vision. I had to ask myself, if nobody's watching, if there's no applause, if the rewards disappear, will I still keep going? That's when I started looking deeper at the why behind my own behavior. Because if I didn't understand it, I wasn't sure if I would keep going. And what I found is that most of us go through life on autopilot, chasing approval, rewards, status, comfort, without really asking what's underneath it all. That's why I think this topic matters. Understanding the difference between extrinsic and intrinsic motivation can change the way you live. It changed me. And in this episode, I'll also share something I've never said before. Why I call this channel Blind Inspirations. It's not about sight, but we'll get to that. First, let's talk about what happens when the motivation comes from inside. Intrinsic motivation is the inner drive to do something because it matters to you. No paycheck, no praise, no spotlight. You do it because something inside you wants to. It's what makes a musician practice in silence, what makes a blind runner keep training when no one's around, what makes someone like me, navigating vision loss, keep learning, keep building, even when the finish line keeps moving, even when I'm not sure where it is anymore. It's powerful because it lasts. Studies show that people driven by intrinsic motivation stick with challenges longer, feel more fulfilled, and perform better in the long run. It's not fueled by attention, it's fueled by alignment. Neuroscience shows that when you're driven by genuine interest, your brain's reward system stays active longer. Instead of short bursts, it builds steady momentum. Deep inside your brain, areas linked to curiosity, focus, and resilience light up, keeping you engaged, even without a reward. And over time, that helps you handle stress, stay motivated, and build emotional strength. But we're living in a time when attention is splintered. The constant scroll, the quick hits, the endless flood of content. We're being conditioned to expect instant payoff that rewires your brain to short-term rewards and away from deep focus. And that's a problem because intrinsic motivation depends upon patience, persistence, and the ability to stay with something long enough to let it grow. When our culture pushes for fast, loud, and now, it weakens the very systems that help us stay grounded and self-driven. And here's what's wild. When you start doing something for the reward, even if you used to love it, it can actually lower your motivation. Psychologists call it the over-justification factor. The reward starts to replace the reason. That's why relying on praise or incentives as your primary fuel can backfire. It works for a little while, but eventually the applause fades, the money dries up, or the likes stop rolling in. And if that's what you were chasing, so do you. But intrinsic motivation, that stays, even in the dark, even when no one's looking. That's why it matters. But I know that organizing my office, personal space, and bathroom has a huge impact on my day. When my surroundings are orderly, everything flows better. It's not about enjoyment, it's about function. Over time, that necessity has become internalized. I break tasks down into small steps while keeping the end result in mind. The satisfaction of knowing where everything is, of having a settled, organized environment propels me forward. What started as an extrinsic need, I have to clean the function, has become an intrinsic need. The act itself becomes self-motivating, independent of external rewards. Vision loss forced me to shift from the chaos of an Oscar Madison to the meticulousness of a Felix Unger. For context, these were the characters from Neil Simon's 1970 TV show, The Odd Couple. Oscar was carefree and chaotic, while Felix was obsessive about cleanliness, order, and routine. When I had good vision, I could get away with being like Oscar. But as my vision declined, I saw the benefit of becoming more like Felix. I had to internalize structure and organization because I couldn't rely on sight or external reminders anymore. That shift, moving from chaos to meticulousness, turned organization into something deeper, a source of intrinsic motivation. What once felt optional became essential, and that internal drive now propels me forward in everything I do. I've applied the same principle to all areas of my life. When I created Blind Inspirations, that intrinsic drive shaped the structure of the channel. I chose to form it as an LLC instead of a nonprofit to maintain control and independence. My goal was not profit. It was consistency, quality, and authenticity. The inspiration behind this work is blind, straight from my heart. I don't need an audience to validate me. I simply create, share my story, and trust that others will find value in it. It's a process of acting first, feeling the motivation internally, and letting the outcomes, order, progress, impact, reinforce the drive naturally. That's how I turn things I might resist into actions I can't ignore. The core lesson of intrinsic motivation is that it doesn't rely on external prompts. True motivation comes from within. It arises naturally when you understand what is essential to your sense of alignment, your growth, and your purpose. For me, organization, structure, and consistency became that internal compass. When I started Blind Inspirations, I thought about likes, views, and external recognition. But I quickly discovered that focusing on what I am genuinely drawn to, the stories, the topics, the experiences I care about, creates intrinsic motivation. The act of creating from my own interests drives me more than any external reward ever could. The inspiration is blind. It comes from within, not from metrics or approval. What I also found is that the process itself, writing, producing, creating, and editing these videos, changed me. Each step reinforced my internal drive, strengthened my habits, and deepened my understanding of what motivates me. The work isn't just about sharing with others, it shapes me from the inside out. I still like likes, views, and shares, but they aren't necessary for me to keep creating. The real motivation comes from the work itself, researching stories, exploring topics, and getting the information out there. That internal drive is what keeps me consistent and engaged, regardless of external validation. The takeaway is simple, but powerful. Cultivate a practice, a habit, or a system that matters to you. Let it guide your actions without waiting for external reinforcement. Intrinsic motivation thrives when the source is self-generated, internalized, and essential to who you are. That's how you turn obligation into action, resistance into flow, and necessity into inspiration. We've explored how motivation can come from within, how habits and organization can shape our drive, and how the work itself, the research, the storytelling, the creation, can change us. It changes us from the inside out. It's about trusting the process, following the pull from your heart, and letting the work guide you. Remember, The inspiration is blind. It doesn't need validation. It doesn't need applause. It exists in you, waiting for you. When you honor that, everything else, the outcomes, the growth, and the connections, it all falls into place naturally. Blind inspirations, stories from inside the journey. And if you gained a nugget of inspiration from this video, I am truly grateful. And if you really enjoyed it and you want to follow me, come and join me on my journey into blind inspirations. Thank you.